Um, what I wanted to talk about this week was making multiples. But I first of all wanted to say, like, just to clarify at the start that we do not have time to make multiples this time round, and it's not part of the brief at all. All I wanted to do was share with you how you would do it, so that if you have a future project that you have where you wanted to make multiples, then you have a sort of just a base knowledge of where you would get started. Obviously, everything will make more sense when you are like practically doing it and actually making it. So just wanted to clarify that. This is just chatting for like to just build up a bit of knowledge on how you would make a mold to make multiples. Yeah. So to begin with, so first of all, there are two types of molds that we can make for wax injection, and that is a vulcanized rubber mold or with a silicon mold. One is made hot and the other is made cold, and they both have like pros and cons for it. So to start off with, here's some examples. So these are some vulcanized rubber molds. Okay. Here is another vulcanized rubber mold. This is what they look like. And then when they're opened, this is what they look like. So there is like locks in place, so that they fit in snugly to each other.
Yeah,
and there is.
Okay. Yeah, just yeah. Because
Pardon?
that was still. All right.
Were you okay?
Right. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Oh. Sorry, carry on. So this is the inside is the impression of a ring and then the sprue attached to it. This is what we would put, use the wax injector to get wax into that space. So that's sort of what that one looks like. This one is, as they've cut it open, they've kept the bottom together. So that would be that one, you're pulling it apart. And that was this one. So they all have different sort of cavities inside it. And then for this mold example, this ring, this is what the wax injections would look like. So you can do as many multiples as you wanted, and they would all be exactly the same. So those three wax injections have all come from that one mold. And this is vulcanized rubber molds. Then the other way to make a mold is with silicon rubber. So this is my example of a silicon mold, where we've got two halves. It's made in clear silicon. Again, we've cut out the locking aspects with grooves and that, so that they will nicely slot together. There's the hole at the top, and the ring shaped within it, which would be a wax injected. So that's just what a couple of molds look like. So then I was going to chat about what the pros and cons of each are first, and then I just want to briefly talk about sort of how you would go about making them. Again, this is all sort of brief overviews of processes, just to get a basic understanding. So the vulcanized rubber mold is your standard way of making a mold in jewelry. It's really good for a metal master. So if the ring is already in metal, then it's great to use a vulcanized one. They're also really durable molds. They last a long time. You'll get a lot of multiples from them. And separating the halves, each half is a bit easier than it is with the silicone one. The negative of a vulcanized rubber mold is that shrinkage will definitely occur. So, like, for example, with rings, like, you will definitely go down a couple of ring sizes when you've made a mold in vulcanized rubber. So that's that one. Then for the cold silicone mold, this is made, like it says, it's made cold. So it's made with a part A and part B mix, and then it will just set at room temperature. They're really good for materials that will not take any heat or pressure. So if you wanted to make a mold of a wax, then you would use a cold silicone mold, because if you put the wax in the vulcanized mold, it would just melt everywhere. So they're good for waxes or organic materials. They're also good for very, very fine, delicate models that have sort of got lots of little wire or parts, delicate parts to it. They would work better in a cold mold, so that there's sort of no risk of melting any tiny little bits. There is also like less shrinkage when it comes to a cold mold, so you're more likely to keep a similar ring size rather than it definitely go down a bit if it was in a vulcanized one. But the negatives are it can degrade quicker than a rubber mold. So a rubber mold might last longer than a silicone mold. And also the separating of the two halves is more complicated, because we're requires precise work with a scalpel to cut out the grooves and the recesses as we're going along. So that can be a little bit more complicated with it. But so that's the pros and cons. Next, what I wanted to show you guys was what the wax injector looks like. So I'm just going to come around here, flip you around. This is it. This is what the wax injector is. I'm not demoing it in process in like this morning, just because it takes a couple of hours for the wax inside to fully melt. But just to show you cold how it would work, I would have my mold here, put it together. Can we see all right? Yeah. I'd get 2 metal plates to hold it, and it would be turned on, wax fully melted. I would have the air compressor on so that I had a pressure here, so that it would push the wax into it. And all you would do is like push it in the nozzle, hold it for a few seconds. It would push hot wax in, stand it upright, wait a couple minutes for the wax to set, and then you would separate the molds. So this one has got the mold in it. So that's what it would look like in there. You need a let me just flip you back around. You need to have a pressure with the wax injector, so that it pushes it to like all of the edges of your model. But using the wax injector itself is very simple. It's the mold making that is the more complicated process that you need to go through. I'm just going to bring you back over here. Has anybody got any questions where I'm at? No? We all okay? We still there? Okay. Oh, I'll come over here. What I wanted to chat to you briefly about is how you would go about making a mold. So let's see if you can all see here. So to start off with the vulcanized mold, you get mold frames that look like this, or like these. And the vulcanized rubber comes in sheets like this. So different sheets, they're all the same size. What you would do for the vulcanized rubber mold, so you've got your mold frame, you'll need 6 sheets to make one mold. They come in like a coating, so they've got a coating on the back and a coating on the front. And you would peel them off to begin with on both sides so that you are able to stick them together. So you would get your sheets, unwrap them, put them into your frame. See, imagining that they are completely unwrapped. So you put 3 in first, and then we've got things like these. These are mold locks. So they just they just push into the rubber, and it just helps us to have the locks to like separate them. So we would pop 4 of them in each corner. This is a handy thing as well. This is a sprue former. So it's got like a cone shape, which would help to have the funnel for the nozzle to go in to push the wax in, and then the straight sprue. So you could use one of them, pop that in place, pop your model in place. Then what you would do is use some talcum powder, just a little bit to dust onto the surface. And what the talcum powder does is act as a mold separator, which will help us to be able to pull the 2 halves apart. So once we've covered it in a little bit of talc, then we would put the next 3, we would unwrap each piece and then put the next 3 slices of vulcanized rubber on the top. Once we've done that, we would get plates, get faces like this, and have it, so like this. Have it all ready to go, all sandwiched in here. And then we'll put it into the vulcanizer. And that is a tool that looks like this. So this is what the vulcanizer looks like. It's got 2 hot plates. And what you do is we would pop our mold into it. So if I pop you there, this is the mold that we would pop in with it all sandwiched in place. And then using the clamp at the top, we would push it down, pull it down so that it fully clamps as tight as we can possibly get it. And then these hot plates will cook the rubber inside it. Tends to take about an hour or so to cook the mold. Then obviously it's super hot, so we would loosen it and we would leave it to cool before we tried to separate the 2 halves together, the 2 halves apart even. So that's that one. Has anybody got any questions about that?
How hot does that plate get? The
I
moulding.
can't remember off the top of my head. Not sure.
And so I presume, obviously, that this will be the metal, the casting that you are casting, as it were.
Yeah, so what this is what we would call a metal master. That would be inside the vulcanized
Yeah.
rubber mold. It would only be metal that you use for vulcanizer. Anything else will melt in the hot plate.
But you can use the wax, the other method.
Yeah. Yeah, if you had a wax model that you wanted a multiple of, then you would use a cold mold.
Thank you.
So just to briefly explain a cold mold, I've got this here. So we see that there. So if we have like a model, like a wax model, you would get it on a sprue. And here I've got a little bit of modeling wax. You can get, like in InStream, that you would get a specific cold mold frame for jewelry. Like you would buy them, they're small, narrow, and they've got a little like funnel bit as part of the mold. But basically, it's you would pop that, and then you would get your mold walls, and put it around the model. You would secure the mold. You would secure the mold walls so that there was no gaps and there would be absolutely no leaks. So you would like either pop tape or put like modeling wax to like really secure it. I know that you guys have done the plaster mold making like videos with Helen, so it's sort of, there's some parallels to the plaster mold making to a silicone mold making sort of process. So you would secure the mold walls, making sure that there was no gaps, and then like I say, it's a part A and part B mix. Each silicone mold has like a different ratio, and it's the ratio that is important, because if you do an incorrect ratio, then your mold will just not cure properly and it will just stay sticky and not set. So you would weigh out, mix your part A with your part B. You would then degas it to get rid of all the bubbles so that we had a nice smooth mold. And then you would pour it on the top and leave it overnight to set. So then you had your block of silicone rubber, and then using a sharp scalpel, you would cut the two halves apart. That's sort of a basic overview of how you would go about making the molds. So yeah, has anybody got any questions for me? No?
When you cut out the silicone mold, will the if you're using a wax, will it stick to it, or will you be able to get it out like you just did the other one with talcum?
No, it will come out. It will come out of the silicone mold. It's just a case of like careful cutting, really, but it won't be stuck in.
Okay.
But yeah, how's everybody getting on in general though? Are we feeling okay about this project? Mediocre? Okay. Okay, well, if everybody's happy, then I will leave it there then. That's all I wanted to talk about today. just so that we had an understanding of how we would make a multiple. But yeah, like I say, I'm gonna be casting this week. I'll send everybody out an email when your molds are, not when your molds, when your castings are ready to collect. And I would recommend booking a time slot so you can use some tools to clean it up. But I will leave you all if there's no questions, and let you get on. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.